of. Did I just hear Kemi Badenoch call someone else arrogant?
I think you might have done.
That's fantastic. So should we start with the things I'm puzzled by, Aggie, that you can steer me through?
I'll try my best.
So all of the policies have been stolen from the Tories, but they're also anti-growth.
Yes.
That's an admission.
And also, it's not the state that creates growth, but it's all their ideas.
Right. Do we know why they didn't implement any of these policies while they were in power for 14 years if they had actually dreamt them up all along?
The other weird thing, a couple of weeks ago, Kemi Badenoch stood up and basically didn't quite apologise, but said they'd made loads of mistakes in the last 14 years and they hadn't got to the place they wanted to be. So she sort of can't, it feels like she can't quite decide whether she wants to disown the last 14 years or actually say that they had loads of brilliant ideas that now Labour are nicking.
And again, as with the arrogance accusation, Stephen Bush in the Financial Times has been writing very powerfully about how obvious it's become that she doesn't do the reading. Amazing to turn up for any encounter without having done your research if it's going to be taking place in public or is likely to be reported. But when it is in as a crucible as keenly observed as PMQs, to turn up without having done the reading is... I read Stephen Bush on this in the FT, which you should be doing every day anyway. But the idea that she's then accusing him of not being across the detail. You're not allowed to say anyone has deliberately misled the House, of course, even when Boris Johnson was lying through his teeth. I think it was Dawn Butler got into trouble for saying so. But these are such odd avenues for her to be going down.
Also, when you read anything about how former leaders of opposition or prime ministers have approached PMQs, they sort of, Tony Blair, I think, called it sort of bowel-wrenching or something. It's something they really worry about and do so much reading. So the idea that she's not kind of treating it the same way makes it quite a strange affair. And I guess begs the question, what is PMQs for now? Someone suggested to me that actually it was just for getting a couple of good clips. Well, did she get a couple of good clips out of that? Because it felt like by question 3, he had said, yeah, we're not going to ditch the Employment Rights Bill. No. But she kept going. So I'm not exactly sure really what the point of that was, I suppose.
I knew this day would dawn, and I hope it undawns. And I've felt that we were edging closer towards it in recent weeks, but it's not. She's so bad, it's not fun to watch anymore. I'll read you some of the text that came in. This is like an under-sevens bowler going up against Ben Stokes. She makes it so easy for Starmer. This is rough. She's really floundering, says. The first one was James, the second one was Ryrie. Callum says there's not much coming back from that. Badenoch would be mortified if she was capable of feeling shame. Mike says Badenoch sounds like a politics student thinking she's about to get an A when she's on the brink of complete failure. Becky in Barnet says Kemi Badenoch seems to have amnesia and doesn't remember that her party did nothing for working people, yet allowed the super rich to fatten their bank accounts. And Lorraine sent that without even knowing that the man she was quoting when she claimed that the employment bill was a playground for lawyers was a man who made £28 million running Serco. I love how she says they are conservative ideas. They had 14 years to implement, says Philip, and didn't even start most of this. John in Leeds speaks for many people. He says, good Lord, she's really useless. She's about as much use as yesterday's gravy. Is that a figure of speech?
I've never heard it before.
I always keep my gravy. I keep gravy in the fridge. Sometimes I freeze it in little ice cube blocks so that I can have a small amount. I do that with stock as well, so I can have a small amount. If I want to make gravy, I've got some stock in ice cube blocks. Anyway, all his ideas, says Matt, are the ones we thought of. Might be the most childish and pathetic thing I've heard her say to date, and it's a crowded field. She reminds me of an annoying, whiny little person I used to be at school with. I could really, really go on. Well, that was terrible from Kemi. She's claiming the government is anti-growth. James, Chris here, she's embarrassing. Randolph, does she really think the playground's so juvenile with all the nodding dog? Possibly Keir's. Oh, finally, here's one. Oh no, Kemi's. I misread it. I thought Kemi said Keir because they look quite similar. I haven't got my glasses on. Possibly Kemi's worst performance today. Starmer had her on toast.
I think the really odd thing for me is Starmer's not that good at this.
I know.
You would really think somebody who is kind of exciting, really good at oratory would have him on toast, if that's the phrase that we're using now.
Yes. So someone has obviously told her that the leader, not a lawyer line works. Nathan suggests someone really needs to tell her that it doesn't.
Okay, so this is interesting because the person that I mentioned before who used to work in Number 10 said that what they had understood that was happening currently in CCHQ, and obviously, this is a normal thing, Labour did that, but they are absolutely focus grouping everything to death. So the reason that they aren't putting about policies, this person thinks, is because they've been told that nobody trusts the Tories at the moment. So that's kind of why they're trying to disown the past. But also they think that anything they put out at the moment just wouldn't wash. So the lawyer line, they've obviously focus grouped that and think, actually, this is working really well. But you think potentially someone needs to say to her, maybe she's listening to this.
Well, judging by... Anyway, talk us through what did actually happen. We've done a sort of big picture overview, and it's time to look at the detail, because, as you say, the oddest element of it was repeatedly asking, are you going to abandon your employment bill because I've told you to which Keir Starmer, unsurprisingly, the first time answered no. And then she asked him again. And then
again.
She asked him again. Go on, remind
inexplicably
us.
again.
Through, yeah.
So that was basically the main thing. She suggested that he had stolen office policies from the Conservatives, asked if they were going to drop the Employment Rights Bill. Now, of course, we should say the Employment Rights Bill, according to the government's own assessment, says that it will cost £5 billion a year to set up. But some businesses have said that actually they are pro it. Other businesses are very, very worried about it. So that is the kind of backdrop to why she's asking about this. And also yesterday, Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves met businesses in Number 10. They had breakfast with them, and they suggested that every policy that now came out of this government was going to be kind of growth proof. And a suggestion that a policy coming out of this government, like the Employment Rights Bill, that's going to cost £5 billion a year, that doesn't sound growth proof. They are saying it is. So, he said, no, we're not going to drop it. She went on and asked that a few more times. He had this, I think, probably quite good line, actually, about the fact that she was going to be the next lettuce, of course, referencing them.
Power of three, isn't it? The rule of three. So she's not a lawyer, she's not a leader, but she might be the next lettuce. So you've got alliteration and you've got the rule of three, both quite well-worn rhetorical tropes.
Which actually, I think she slightly stumbled after that, which did seem like that was the line that landed best. And she asked what the point of the growth test was. He said she was in no position to give lectures on anything. And actually, during that, James, I got a text from somebody, a Labour source, who said they were delighted that she had gone on that because their record is terrible and they haven't learnt a thing. So, I mean, it does show that Labour think, 6 questions on that is going pretty well for them.
Yeah.
Ed Davey then popped up.
He's going to do this every week, isn't he? Customs Union. It's strong. Oh, I don't know. Have you seen the polling that YouGov have just released? During that speech, what percentage of people polled believe that Britain was right to vote to leave the EU?
Go on.
No, have a guess.
43.
30.
Oh,
it's down to 30, which I'm still shocked by. I don't know who these... Well, I mean, you can always go on Twitter, I suppose, to find out who these people are, I presume. But there it is, a new low. 1 in 6 Leave voters now say it was wrong for the UK to vote for Brexit. But remarkable figures there. And, of course, this is the wave that Ed Davey is riding, solo, really. Greens, to be fair, are on a similar page. But he is just going to keep hitting the customs union, is it? And it's very hard to argue. Chris Mason's question to this isn't a criticism of Chris, because I'd like to think it was an omission by accident rather than deliberately. But he talks about the deep economic scars that the country is still suffering from, and then lists some without mentioning the biggest one of all, which is Brexit. And Rachel Reeves again didn't go there, but it gives Ed Davey a lovely opportunity to sort of hoover up quite a lot of support, I imagine.
I think that criticising Donald Trump and NHS and social care are the kind of 4 big issues that Lib Dems feel they have space to go on, because for whatever reason, Labour feel it's sort of too difficult for them to reopen that or say too much on Brexit, although, of course, they have said numerous times they want to reset relations. But Keir Starmer refused to say whether he's going to open talks with EU joining the PEM Europe-wide customs scheme, as Ed Davey proposed. But I think he is going to continue, as you say, punching that bruise, going on criticising Donald Trump, because another thing this Labour government feel that they can't do and have to be very, very careful with their words around Donald Trump.
Yeah, and that's just true, I think, however much you might want them to show a little bit more. It's a reminder of what we're reduced to as a country by not being in a big bloc, because some of the European leaders have been quite a lot more robust in their critiques.
They have, and I do understand it is difficult. I mean, especially because you've got a foreign secretary who has been extremely critical in the past and basically has to be so much more careful.
Like Steve Redgrave, isn't he? So again, I'll steer you back, if I may, to the conversation we had before. What many people are telling me they think is, in a very crowded field, her worst performance yet. And mindful of that addiction to drama from which we probably all suffer. journalists and politicians alike, although some of us are desperate to go cold turkey, others remain very enthusiastic in their addictions. I mean, when might moves start being made if she really doesn't manage to impress anybody?
It's a good question. I reckon she's got a couple of years.
You do?
I think because also...
How long did Duncan Smith stay in power for? He had a couple of years.
He had 18 months.
Only 18 months.
I think it was something like 18 months. But I think people will be generous because they are aware of that kind of drama point. But it may be
Tories are
seen
more
as things
addicted to it than the Labour Party historically. They're much more attuned to getting rid of dead weight than the Labour Party has, as recent years have taught us.
Yeah, and you know, when the herd moves, it moves, doesn't it? So things like this can happen very quickly. But I was speaking to a senior Labour MP the other day who said the best thing Keir Starmer can do is actually just be in power for 5 years and prove to the country that someone can be in power for 5 years and just reset this basically addiction to drama.
And his only real threat there becomes the sort of nativist populism of Mr Farage, whether or not that is ever hitched to the Conservative Party or not. Aggie, that was brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.